This is a mechanics video talking about how to use certain buffering techniques to achieve more consistent drop zone dairs. Samus is annoying to edgeguard since her up B gives her such good horizontal drift, but watch Jaime here. He runs off stage and immediately down airs without fast falling. Note that if Samus does fast fall here, she dies. So in some ways this seems like a really crazy risk to take in such a big tournament set. But here's Boom doing the same thing on Captain Falcon. Is it just that these players have great mechanics? Or is there a secret? Well, it's probably yes to both. But before we talk about that, let's be clear what we mean by drop zone dair and buffering. Drop zone dair is often used as a colloquial term in 64 to just refer to a dair performed while your character is falling but not fast falling, as in these edgeguarding clips we just saw. Doing a drop zone dair can be scary because if you accidentally fast fall, you'll die. So many players only do ascending down airs in this area, but this is very limiting. In 64, when we talk about buffering, we're talking about getting the thumbstick in a fully extended position without getting a smash input. So here's a little combo as an example. As you can see, after I get this pivot back air on Captain Falcon, I put the thumbstick all the way in the bottom position while I'm still in the ending frames of my back air. This ensures that I don't fast fall, in the same way that if you up smash and continue holding up, pressing A will result in up tilts, not more up smashes. In this video, we'll focus specifically on the situation we see in these edgeguarding clips, that is, running off the stage and immediately doing a drop zone dair. For this situation, we pretty much have 4 choices, 2 unbuffered techniques and 2 buffered techniques. In general, the unbuffered techniques are nice because they can be used in any situation, since you don't need to buffer the thumbstick beforehand. But we'll see in this situation that these unbuffered techniques require a little bit too much precision and are therefore inconsistent. And given that we will die if we mess up, we would like to have these buffered options instead, which are very consistent because they exploit the mechanics of the current situation that we're in. We'll go through all 4 of these techniques in order. Let's start by talking about the 2 unbuffered ways we can get a down air while descending. So the first way is to just down tilt, and we only put the thumbstick about halfway down and then press A. And because we're not doing a down smash, we won't actually register a fast fall. This is analogous to trying to do an up tilt without jumping while on the ground. The second method is to do a down smash, but have very precise timing on our A button press. So as you can see here, the exact moment I hit down, I also hit A. As we'll see in a moment, this is only a 1 frame window, but it's not actually frame perfect, since if you press A early, you'll just get the down tilted version of this technique. Let's take a look at the frames of this in tasks really quick. In this first example, I'm going to do a 52 range down tilt and press A, and I don't fast fall. But if I try this again with a 53 range, you'll notice that I do fast fall, showing us that 52 is the highest range we can use. Finally, if I do use 53, but I perfectly time my A button press, then I won't fast fall. Altogether, we've shown that the unbuffered techniques will require either precise thumbstick movement or good A button timing. It's worth learning one of these techniques, since we can use them in any situation. We don't need to buffer beforehand or have anything planned out. But in the current situation that we're talking about, where we run off stage and drop zone dair, we really can't afford to mess up since we'll die if we do. So we'd like to have a technique which can give us more consistency. This brings us to our first buffered down air technique, which is crouch buffering. So obviously, as the name suggests, we're going to start by crouching, and then we're going to hit the thumbstick into the lower left or lower right parts of the gate, and then immediately back to the crouch position. So this is going to input a dash, and then we'll immediately crouch again after we get out of our dash or run animation. But because we're holding in the bottom diagonals, we're actually going to have this crouch buffered already. And so whenever we run off stage, we're not going to be able to fast fall, and we can just press A whenever we want and get a drop zone dair. This appears to be the technique which Jaime uses, given that he crouches and then does his run off dair. And it's very consistent because it's literally impossible for us to fast fall, so it's very safe. The only issue is that it does require a little bit of setup time since we have to be crouching beforehand. The other buffered dair technique is dash buffering. And this technique takes advantage of the fact that you cannot edge cancel in your dash animation. If you recall, the edge cancel is when you're in your run animation and you let go of the thumbstick immediately before coming to the edge. It resets your character and you can immediately do whatever you want. This works because it puts you in the teetering animation, and you can immediately cancel that with whatever. However, the edge cancel is only possible in the run animation, and if we dash and let go of the thumbstick, we simply slip off the edge. Dash buffering takes advantage of this slide off by letting us input an initial dash and then immediately buffering down before we've left the platform or the stage. This will result in us crouching when we reach the ground, even though we never fast fell in the air. So now, of course, once we've done this, we can just press A at any time to get a drop zone dair. So we input the initial dash, and then we hold down before we leave the platform. If you do it too late, you'll get the fast fall. So there is a little bit of a margin for error in this technique, but with a little bit of practice, it can become quite consistent, where originally we're getting fast falls, and then we can soon get clean drop zone dairs. The main issue with dash buffering is that the timing that we need is dependent on the dash speed of the character we're playing. So with Captain Falcon, we need to be much faster than we need to be with Samus, for example. Of course, with a little bit of practice, this can still become very consistent, and so as long as you're willing to put in the time, dash buffering does have some advantages over crouch buffering. When we crouch buffer, we need to plan ahead so we can get the crouch input in, whereas dash buffering can be done on the fly with no planning at all. As a recap, the unbuffered techniques of down tilting or timing our aerial are worth learning because they're extremely general, but are also very risky, and they have an unacceptable risk versus reward for us. So we'd rather use a buffered technique. Crouch buffering is very reliable, consistent, and easy, but it's a little bit slow since we need to set up with the crouch animation. On the other hand, dash buffering is fast and reactionary, but is a little more difficult, especially if we're playing a faster character. Before we close, I just want to look at two other ways we can get buffered drop zone dairs, even though they're not applicable to the situation we've been looking at. We've already seen attack buffering earlier in this video. It's when we buffer the thumbstick down during the frames of another attack. Jump buffering, on the other hand, is when we start holding down during the ascent of a jump, since we can't fast fall at that time. So as I jump off the top platform, I immediately start holding down before I fall, and then I get two drop zone dairs. All of the techniques we've discussed have their own strengths and weaknesses, so practice them all and figure out which subset is the most comfortable for you.